deep East Texas community of Lufkin. And in this conservative community, Tyra, or Ty as her friends knew her, certainly stood out.
She was a very, very outspoken person. If something wasn't right, she would let you know off top.
Ty was never afraid of anything.
With confidence through the roof, Ty went after everything she wanted with gusto.
She always tried to go over the top and overachieve.
She was at the top of her class in high school.
When Ty graduated, she set her sights on a career in the medical field, and first she trained as a certified nurse's assistant.
She went and got her license to be a phlebotomist, actually, also, too.
After that, her career just took off, you know?
Then in February of 2014, Kenya Darks, Ty's childhood best friend and confidant, called Ty with a tempting offer to move a couple of hours north to Tyler, Texas.
I used to preach to her, get out of Lufkin. There's way more to see in this world. So I asked her for a couple months. In the end, 1 month, she was like, I'm coming. And I was like, are you for real? She was like, yes.
And a few weeks later, Ty made good on that promise. She packed her bags and moved to Tyler.
That was awesome. To have my best friend that close, like, hey, get up. I want to talk. Or let's go grab breakfast.
Compared to sleepy Lufkin, Tyler felt like a metropolis. And with Kenya's connection and Ty's qualifications, Ty soon landed a great job in her field.
We worked at the same nursing home.
Everybody liked Ty. Ty was fun to work with.
And Ty always dressed to impress, especially after hours.
Like, her body was gorgeous, sickening. And it was just like, wow, like, how did you do that?
You are a hell of a dancer.
You're not so bad yourself. So, typical night for us is men buying us drinks, dancing, trying not to sweat off our makeup or sweat out our hair. Sometimes, if the drinks are just in our system, it's just impossible. We're going to have a fun night. The hair is going to come down.
But even for someone as outgoing as Ty, finding lasting love in a new place was challenging.
We will meet guys, like 60% of the time it was over apps.
Like a lot of young people, they began exploring online dating sites.
The type of men that Ty would usually come across were men that were already involved. They were either married or they had a girlfriend.
But Ty refused to waste time waiting around for Mr. Right. She had dreams of her own to fulfill.
All she wanted to be was a nurse.
In January of 2015, all of Ty's hard work paid off when she was accepted into the nursing program at Kilgore College.
I was very, very, very proud of Ty. She made it look so easy.
She was on top of the world.
Which is why now, less than a month later, Ty's tragic death seems even more unfathomable. In the early morning hours of January 26, 2015, police in Tyler, Texas responded to what they believed to be a single-car accident involving 24-year-old Tyra Underwood. But upon closer inspection, the reality is far worse.
As they're looking at the victim, they're finding gunshot wounds on the chest, the arm.
Looks like we got a gunshot to the right shoulder as well.
She lost a lot of blood. They couldn't revive her.
She's not breathing.
This wasn't a traffic accident. This was, in fact, a shooting situation, and we had a homicide.
It's then EMS workers relay a startling new piece of information to police.
When they were attaching the EKG leads, there wasn't any breast. Once you take closer examination, you could tell that this was a man dressed as a woman.
It's a dude.
She looks like a woman. I mean, she's beautiful, and that was definitely the confusion at the beginning.
Tyra, or Ty Underwood, identified herself as a transgender woman. But Ty's birth name was Tyrone Underwood.
With homicide detectives now arriving on the scene, officers bring them up to speed on the new development in this case.
While EMS was working her, come to find out it's actually a guy dressed as a girl.
It's a revelation bound to complicate the investigation, especially in a deeply conservative community like Tyler, Texas.
I'm gonna take a look at the body.
Okay.
We didn't know if this was a carjacking. We didn't know if it was a domestic dispute. We didn't know if somebody was in the car with this person and they had an argument and they got out. We had no idea what we had initially.
While detectives can't rule out standard motives for the crime, the fact that you have a male victim that's dressed as a female forced them to consider a series of other possibilities.
There's a possibility that Ty's killer didn't know she was a transgendered woman and freaked out and shot her, or that this was a hate crime.
When you hear about a transgender person in the middle of the Bible Belt in East Texas, unfortunately, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. You know, she was targeted.
While each of these theories is deeply disturbing, as investigators search Ty's car, they're soon able to eliminate at least one possible motive.
We located money in the middle console, so that kind of rules out, a robbery attempt.
Along with money, investigators recover Ty's iPhone, which could be crucial to this case.
Cell phones are a tremendous amount of help a lot of times. There's photographs, there's text messages, there's missed calls.
But just as police are about to begin searching the data on Ty's phone, they hit a snag.
Oh.
One with perhaps devastating consequences.
A lot of iPhones, when they power down and you power them back on, they require a key to get back in.
Without the passcode, detectives might never be able to access important evidence in the case, evidence that could be critical to this investigation.
But despite this setback, police have a more pressing matter for now: tracking down possible eyewitnesses.
I had officers go door to door to see if any other citizens out there heard any gunshots or saw somebody leaving the scene.
There was a shooting that happened, and
Gosh,
have you seen or heard any gunshots?
no, I didn't hear anything at all.
The officers came back to me and said, we woke people up. It was obvious to me that they were asleep. They didn't hear anything.
The only witness we really had heard some gunshots and then looked out the window and called 911. So we didn't have any witnesses that saw what actually took place.
While the news is disappointing, fortunately, with sunrise comes new hope for detectives.
They're able to find over about the course of a city block different evidence along the street.
There were 2 9mm shell casings laying right beside the curb, about a block from where Tyrone's vehicle came to rest.
Car parts and skid marks along the road tell the story of Ty's frantic escape.
The crime scene really laid out the way Ty's life ended, which was with panic driving to get away. The car was in reverse.
He hits a curb, damages both passenger tires. He keeps driving and then hits a mailbox and knocks his mirror off, and then continues to back up.
His car spun around, hit the curb, and got stuck in the mud. They bled out and they passed away.
An examination of the outside of Ty's car leads investigators to believe one of 2 conclusions.
Ty was shot multiple times, but there was only one bullet hole on the outside of the car, and the windows were intact, which means that Ty's shooter was either inside the vehicle with Ty were outside the car and the doors were open.
That could indicate that Ty knew the shooter. They swabbed the places where you would expect if the shooter had been in the car, they would have left their DNA. The seat belt, the door handle, center console.
But as police conduct one final sweep of the vehicle, they find something else.
We located a name in the glove box, Kedrick Darks.
Police knew nothing about this man or his relationship to Ty, but they hoped he could give them information about the victim. There is also the possibility that this could be the shooter.
Let's do it.
Later that morning, investigators knock on Kedrick's apartment door.
Hey, I'm Detective Bill of the Top Police Department. Can I talk to you for a minute?
The detectives say that they're looking for Kedrick Darks, and this individual says, "That's me, but I also go by Kenya."
They say, "May we come in?" And I paused for a couple seconds. And I was like, "Sure, come in."
After learning that Kenya is Ty's roommate, detectives reveal why they're there.
Something happened early this morning. We don't know everything that's happened, but we believe that Ty, you call him Ty, was killed early this morning.
You lied to me. Killed what? My friend is dead. And at first, I was like, "Are you for real?" He was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't be standing in front of you if this was a joke."
When we told Kedrick that Tyrone was deceased, you could tell that Kedrick was very emotional.
I wake up and my best friend is not there. Like, what movie am I living? What role am I playing right now? Because this is not my life.
Kenya's genuine shock conveyed to detectives that this was not a suspect, but a grief-stricken friend, and possibly a key source of information to the investigation.
I'm gonna need your help.
Just give me a second, and I answer any of y'all questions. That's fine. That's fine.
And it was like, "We're leaving up to you to tell the family." You call them, let them know. Meet us downtown the next 30 minutes.
Calling Ty's mom is the hardest thing Kenya has ever had to do.
I told her they found Ty dead in her car shop death. And she immediately starts screaming and hollering. And she drops the phone. Her coworker picks up the phone and asks me what's going on. And I tell her. She screams and tells me that they're on their way.
Determined to help catch Ty's killer, Kenya hurries to the Tyler Police Department.
I just want to know who it is. I answered them. That's what we're trying to get about.
Detectives begin their questioning by trying to learn more about Ty and Kenya's lifestyle. According to Kenya, she and Ty made the decision to live as women during high school.
We always knew that we were different, but it was like my junior year when we actually make up in our mind that, hey, this is what we are.
Although Ty and Kenya sexually identified as women, they made a conscious decision not to alter their bodies surgically or hormonally, so they were still biologically male.
Ty's mother was fully supportive, but she was also very scared for Ty.
The mother, she cried, and Ty asked her why did she cry, and she was like, because of the danger and people who are so cruel. She always used to say, just be careful, y'all. Be careful whatever you do. We made a pact that we would not be enemies without him knowing the truth, because of that is so dangerous.
Kenya tells detectives that she and Ty met most of their dates on the internet.
Social media and the dating apps allowed her to communicate with these people often and see if they were genuinely interested in her or something else.
While Ty's online presence afforded her a certain degree of freedom and anonymity, detectives know it also might have exposed her to something else.
The danger of online dating is that you never really know the individual that you're talking to until you meet them face to face, and that can potentially expose someone to a very dangerous situation.
Had Ty fallen victim to such an encounter? They asked Kenya when was the last time she saw Ty alive. Kenya says they spent most of the evening together.
I had just seen Ty. It was no later than 12:45-ish.
So I thought she was going to sleep first of all.
So you never heard of these?
Like I said, I had no clue my homegirl was gone.
But after detectives reveal the location where Ty's body was found, the conversation shifts.
The detective mentioned that the shooting happened on 24th Street in Tyler.
What would Ty be doing out there that night?
Still praying at Texas College. Is it by Texas College? I was like, she have a guy friend that she's been seeing for like a month that goes to Texas College.
He was a football player.
This dude named Carlton.
After finishing the interview with Kenya, detectives head to Texas College to determine if there's a student athlete on the team that goes by the name Carlton.
We really wanted to talk to Carlton to find out what he knew about Tyrone and why Tyrone was up in the north part of town.
But with only a first name in hand, they need the university administration's help.
We ended up contacting the president of the college. He got us a list of all football players.
Sure enough, there's a Carlton on the football team. They asked Carlton to come to the office so the investigators could talk to him.
In a private conference room, detectives begin the conversation with a simple question.
You know a girl named Tyra? We asked him the name of Tyra because that's what Tyrone went as.
The 21-year-old college junior readily admits to police that he and Ty were in contact.
He said he met her a couple of times and just pretty much talked on an app on his tablet called Kick. You ever had sex with her?
No, at all. We just talked.
He said they had a fairly distant relationship.
Given Carlton's response, detectives wonder how much this strapping football player really knew about Ty.
They ask if Carlton knows that Ty was really a man.
Her real name is Tyrone. That's a dude. That's a guy.
It's kind of crazy.
You know she's a male.
I've only seen her 2 times. I'm sitting here still confused, like, damn, I don't know what's going on.
Tyrone was shot and killed this morning.
Man, it's kind of crazy.
For Carlton, the timing of Ty's death is particularly troubling. He says he and Ty originally made plans to meet that night.
She was like, I'm finna come up and meet you now. Like, well, you better hurry if I go to sleep.
What time was that?
I think it was like around 11.
But Carlton says that not long after their conversation, he fell asleep, and that he hadn't seen or spoken to Ty since.
To detectives, Carlton seems like a young man with nothing to hide.
Carlton answered the questions freely, or he said he never left his dorm room. You wouldn't mind giving us a swab of your DNA, would you? Yeah.
They didn't have any reason to detain him.
We're going to still keep investigating, and if something comes up, then you know I'll be back over here.
I told you right here. It's your job.
24 hours into their investigation, detectives are growing increasingly desperate for a viable lead. So they turn to the one piece of evidence in their possession that could make or break their case.
If detectives can access Ty's phone, the data inside could well be the key to unlocking her killer's identity.
We charged the phone up, and once it was charged up, it was locked.
Police have only 10 chances to guess the correct password before the phone locks them out forever.
Investigators thought, well, what are the odds of us guessing the code?
Try 1, 2, 3, 4.
We ended up trying a few different numbers.
No, only got some of the chances, huh?
Then all of a sudden they tried the birth date.
We're in.
Okay.
Get that.
Once inside the phone, the secrets of Ty's personal life begin to pour out. But the sheer volume of Ty's electronic correspondence is overwhelming.
There was a lot of messages between Tyrone and other individuals. At first, we were trying just to try to narrow down and see if he was communicating with somebody right before the homicide occurred.
As investigators scroll through Ty's phone, one message on the dating app Plenty of Fish jumps out at them.
It appeared to police that Ty had been communicating with a man named George McCrae just hours before the killing. They had met online.
It wasn't just platonic correspondence, and it was very clear that George and Ty had plans to meet.
Cross-referencing their public databases with an online people search, investigators discover something stunning.
George lived near the crime scene.
After locating George McCrae, detectives bring him down to the station for an interview.
We're looking into the death of a person here whose name is Tyrone Underwood. That name ring a bell with you?
At first, George denies knowing Ty, but when detectives turn up the heat, George changes his tune.
He admitted that he had been texting Tyrone.
He was aware that Ty was transgender.
Did it bother you that he was a dude? Kind of in a way, because I kind of thought it was a dude, and I kind of thought it was a woman, but it was a dude with me, but just trying to meet up, yeah.
Detectives already suspect that Ty's death could be a possible hate crime, and here's George admitting that Ty's sexual orientation bothered him.
Detectives confront George with a text showing he and Ty had planned to hook up the night of the murder. But George denies that meeting ever took place.
George said it got late. He wanted Ty to come to his place. Ty wanted George to come to her place. But in the end, he says, nothing happened.
Detectives aren't so sure they believe George's story.
The problem is, he did come that way. You know, damn lie. You know where he's killed him? About 8 blocks from the house. I never get his person the address. How do we know that? He was a lie detector and asked me, did I see him that night? Would you do that for me? Yeah, let's go. Really? I'm trying to get the hell out of here, man.
So investigators strapped George up to a polygraph machine, and sure enough, he passed for flying colors. They let him go.
With George McCrae seemingly eliminated as a suspect, and with no arrest in sight, fear is mounting in Tyler's LGBTQ community.
There was a real fear that this was a hate crime, and the killer could strike again.
In the coming days, community activists band together to ensure Ty's unsolved murder remains front-page news.
There was a big outpouring of support from the LGBTQ community here in East Texas.
It's tragic that this happened to one of us, but we're giving awareness. It's not going to be overlooked because she's a transgender woman.
But despite everyone's suspicions as to what prompted this murder, police remain reluctant to lock onto one motive.
Ty was always very forthcoming about being transgender. So while it's possible that this was a hate crime, it's also possible that Ty's killer knew about her sexual orientation and didn't care.
But as police know, there's one person who is denied knowing that Ty was transgender, and that was Carlton Champion.
When police speak to Kenya Darks again, Ty's roommate and close confidant makes it clear to investigators that Ty believed there was something special about Carlton.
She came to me about this guy. They met on an app called Kick. She always wanted an athlete, so That's another reason why I think she was so turned on to him, because he was an athlete. She was like, bling, 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 happy, happy, happy.
But Kenya doesn't stop there. According to her, she had met Ty's man crush on at least one occasion.
He came over to the house. Like, she went and got him from the college. Because he didn't have a car at the time.
At least the way Kenya paints it, it sure sounds like Carlton and Ty weren't just mere acquaintances. There's much more to this story.
To verify, detectives speak to Carlton's friends and teammates. But unfortunately, none of them can offer much help. Looking to gather more information, detectives decide to pay a visit to his family in Longview.
When the detectives talked to his father, they asked if Carlton was homosexual. And his father said they didn't believe his son to be homosexual.
Now, as you mentioned it, he never really brought any girls around or anything like that.
No one in Carlton's family seems to know much about his dating habits, but they do provide detectives with additional insight into Carlton's past. They explain they are not Carlton's biological family, but rather the foster family who helped lift Carlton out of a violent, poverty-stricken childhood.
He had a troubled childhood. His mother had an addiction problem. His father was in and out of prison.
But Carlton's fortune apparently changed after he was placed in a boys' home in Baytown, Texas as a young child.
He made a friend at school, and fortunately, the friend's family liked him and became his new foster family.
He was a part of the family. We got him ready for prom, graduation. He got disciplined. Carlton was given a new start, if you will.
He starts to come into his own in a good way.
And while Carlton's foster family says he struggled at first academically, he never gave up, keeping his eyes on the prize.
He wanted to be a football star. He's an awesome athlete. He has potential to go to the NFL. He was a great athlete, and eventually his dedication to the sport and his schoolwork paid off.
He had gotten a scholarship to Texas College.
Being accepted into the football team, it seemed as if he was on the path to making his dreams come true.
To police, this hardly seems like the portrait of a would-be killer.
He had his life going in a good direction.
Carlton had told police in his interview that he really didn't know Ty all that well and denied ever hooking up with her. But Kenya said the pair had been spending a lot of time together and that Ty was head over heels in love with Carlton.
In light of the discrepancy, detectives set out to confirm Carlton's alibi.
Carlton had told the police that he had been in his dorm room all night and he hadn't left.
So authorities decided to get surveillance video from the dorm as well as the front gate.
As police scroll through the dorm camera footage, one clip at 2:37 a.m. on the night of January 26th stops them dead in their tracks.
Look what we have here. They were able to get video of Carlton leaving his dorm room about 10 minutes before the murder and coming back to the dorm room about 5 minutes after the murder.
Given this tight window, detectives walked the half-mile route to confirm whether Carlton had sufficient time to commit the killing.
He had enough time to walk across the street, get in Ty's car in maybe 3 or 4 minutes, then step out, pull the trigger, and then run back to the campus. There was enough time to commit the murder. There wasn't any extra time.
There's one other question the dormitory surveillance tape doesn't answer. Whether or not Carlton ever left campus property the night of the murder.
The campus police couldn't locate the security footage from the front gate showing Carlton actually leaving campus that night. So at this point, it's all speculative.
In a bizarre twist of fate, the footage cuts out during the precise window that Carlton would have had the opportunity to commit the crime.
Detectives needed to find out what happened to that footage.
While one officer confers with campus security about the missing surveillance tape, another works to recover the correspondence between Carlton and Ty that took place on the messaging platform Kik. And it's hardly the innocent platonic conversation Carlton claimed he had with the victim.
There was communication between both of them for a few weeks.
Within 24 hours, it went from texting to sexting.
The first request from Ty is send me a pic, and Carlton sent a picture of his face. And Ty said, no, not that kind of pic. And Carlton then sent a picture of his genitals.
It was clear there had been some sexual relations.
The relationship was much more intimate than he wanted to admit.
They just couldn't keep their hands off each other.
He was like the little engine that could. Like, it didn't stop. And she was satisfied, didn't have no complaints at all. At all.
But as police continue to scroll through Ty and Carlton's racy messages, one thing becomes clear.
A couple of weeks into their relationship, the messages grow more heated, especially after Ty's feelings for Carlton started to deepen.
After a few sexual encounters, Ty starts to notice that Carlton's not responding as quickly.
And Carlton wouldn't answer her. She would get upset where he was, what he was doing. It was obvious that she wanted something serious, and it's obvious he did not.
Carlton even actually tells Tyrone that they may need to take some time off with each other.
Yet Ty refused to give up. Just hours before her murder, Ty texted Carlton insisting they meet up.
She said, I'm going to come to the college and you're going to come meet me. He said, no, you're not coming up here.
Carlton was very adamant on those messages.
He didn't want his football teammates, his coaches, his friends to know what was going on. He wanted that to be a secret between him and Ty, and she seems fed up with keeping secrets.
That's when Carlton tells Tyrone to pick him up 1 block from where the homicide occurred. And then that's the last text message between the two.
Given the content of the messages and the time they occurred, detectives are certain they've found Ty's killer. But before making an arrest, they hope to find additional evidence that directly links Carlton to the crime scene.
The first interview with Carlton Champion, I asked him to provide a sample of his DNA, which he did provide. At that point, we were able to send off the DNA with our crime scene swab from inside the vehicle with Carlton's DNA.
But while waiting for the test results, detectives learned something stunning about the missing gate surveillance footage at Texas College. But footage from the school's rear gate that would conclusively show Carlton leaving campus has gone missing. And it appears as though someone has tampered with the camera.
They thought perhaps somebody had helped Carlton Champion by turning off the cameras.
They were wondering if Carlton had an accomplice. But after the technicians checked out the cameras, it was revealed that it was actually computer glitched.
It just kind of turned out to be a coincidence.
But what doesn't seem so coincidental are the findings from the state's forensic lab regarding the DNA investigators collected from Carlton Champion 1 week earlier.
We asked him, had he ever been in Tyrone's vehicle? And he says no. But Carlton Champion's DNA was found inside the passenger side of that vehicle. Inside the passenger door latch and the front passenger seat belt.
That DNA was the strongest piece of evidence they had. It's what tied him to the crime scene.
At that point, detectives had more than enough evidence to arrest and charge Carlton with first-degree murder.
For Ty's friends and family, it's a relief that her killer is finally behind bars.
I was very excited. I was like, yes, now let's get justice.
At that time, everybody was raising their eyebrows like, okay, yeah, we get it now. It's not a hate crime. It's not nothing like that. This is some love affair gone wrong, literally.
With their perp now in custody, detectives hope Carlton's ready to talk.
It's hard to deny some of the things that we had.
You got to leave the door. You get in the car because your DNA's in the car.
But there's a reason behind it. This would be a good time to let us know.
I'm hungry, sir.
I don't care if you're hungry. Be quiet.
Thank God.
He acted like it was a joke throughout the entire interview. He acted like he didn't care. He wasn't worried. Even when they tell him his DNA is in the car.
Those 40, 50 years gonna be tough on you.
But maybe there's a reason for Carlton's confidence. When his murder trial begins on December 15th, 2015, prosecutors know they have their work cut out for them.
Smith County is a very conservative county. That generally means that they disapprove of lifestyles like Ty's. So the struggle was to explain to jurors the lifestyle that Ty had in a way that they wouldn't find offensive and that they could understand the lifestyle and still hold Carlton accountable.
From the beginning, he told the jury that this man killed Ty because he was ashamed of who she was and who he was. What we do know is he was doing something with Ty, and he was not ready for it to be public.
Prosecutors say Carlton's fear of being outed by Ty is what drove him to murder.
So, you think you just finna do me like this?
When Tyrone says, I'm coming up there, then Carlton has no other choice but to go meet him. What we end up believing is that Tyrone picked up Carlton, and there's some type of argument. And then Carlton pulls his gun out and shoots Tyrone.
We didn't have a murder weapon, and we didn't have a way to prove that he had a gun at any point. He wasn't a registered owner of a gun. We didn't have any witnesses that said they'd sold him a gun. So that was something that we were missing. But we had a lot of evidence against him. We had the messages, we had the DNA. He lied about the relationship. He lied about being in the car. He lied about leaving his dorm room.
Ty, she was hoping that this relationship with Carlton would be long-lasting, but in the end, her quest for love was the reason she was killed.
Carlton's defense team counters by hammering away at the fact that their client has never owned a gun, nor have police ever recovered the murder weapon.
Their whole case was identity. It wasn't my guy. Somebody else did it.
On December 17th, when both sides rest and the jury retires to deliberate, no one knows which way the verdict will go.
We were really sitting there and I'm like, Lord, please don't let this man get out.
Those fears are assuaged when just 2 hours later, the jury returns with their verdict.
When they read that he was guilty, we're all like crying. Actually, it's not even like joy. It's like, yes.
I don't think there was anything the defense could have brought up that could have countered the cold hard evidence that they had.
The following morning, The judge sentences Carlton to life in prison.
Carlton is freaking out. Freaking out. I mean, he was thrashing. He screamed, "I'll be back on the street." His family and friends were not quiet back.
Bailiffs had to come and restrain him and to actually escort him out of the courtroom.
In the end, justice prevailed, and Carlton's life was ultimately taken away from him. He may be still alive, but he's living in a prison, and he will never see his NFL dreams come true.
Though nothing can ever bring back Ty Underwood, her tragic death has brought the community of Tyler, Texas together in unexpected and moving ways.
It was eye-opening to people who live here, the police department, detectives and officers, prosecutors, but I think it was also eye-opening to the LGBTQ community, that it showed them that everyone else does care about them.
I'm looking at the good because it has created a wave in Texas. It's positive, and it gives me just joy because not only are we celebrating my friend's life, we are able to give our community more